Hey there! Thanks for tuning in. This is the Tammy Tine Design YouTube channel. I'm Tammy, and today I'm creating a 2-page layout with 7 photos. This is what I call a composed layout. Composed is one of the 4 layout types that make up my content. A composed layout features multiple photos and lots of pattern paper. When there are so many photos at play, it takes more time to come up with a flattering composition. You have to make sure there's room for the photos, the title, and the journaling. I have 7 photos here. 2 will be 4x6, and the rest will be cut down to 4x3 prints. Let me show you the supplies I pulled for this layout. Since my photos were taken at night, I wanted this to be on a black background. This cardstock is from Basil. I also have several pattern papers. The first one is Chasing Stars from Vicki Boutin's Let's Wander collection. Because this is a sports-related layout, there's not going to be any florals. I thought these colorful stars would be a good pick. The rest of my papers come from Chamel's Go Now Go collection. The green stripe will pull in the green from the field color in the photos. This red medallion print, multicolored leaves, and this city map. I do have a rough sketch for this one. The plan is to have strips of pattern paper in the background with a large block of photos and my journaling in strips. The rest of my layout supplies include a jelly bean soup red alphabet, October afternoon mini market alphabet in pine. Yes, I still have a good stash of these alphabets. I love them and I still use them. I also have a set of black and white thickers. I pulled a bunch of different stars from my stash. These puffy stickers are from Bella Boulevard, but they don't end up making it on my layout. I have some random gems and other enamel dots as well. I also made my own cut file with stars and circles and cut these out with my Cameo 4. I colored them with various distress inks from Tim Holtz to match back to the colors in my pattern papers. These will serve as cluster bases on my layout. Lastly, some other random die cuts, some chipboard and wood veneer stars from Studio Calico that I've had in my stash forever, and these 3 word blocks that I created myself and cut on my Cameo 4 using the print and cut feature. They say, "Go Bucks," "Prime Time," and "Tampa Bay." I'm going to clear off my desk and cut all the paper strips off camera, and then I'll be back to create this layout. Here are the pattern papers that I will line up on my cardstock. Each strip is cut at 1.5 inches wide in different lengths. The way I'm going to line them up is that I'm looking for contrast. I purposely picked papers that had different colored backgrounds, except for the stars in the map paper, which both have white backgrounds. To get the contrast I want, I won't put these papers next to each other. Actually, I kind of like the idea of having the 2 star papers on each end to anchor the entire block. I'm just going to play around for a minute and move these papers around until I like how they line up. When you have a lot of photos, you have less real estate on the page for embellishing and pattern papers. By cutting these papers into strips, I can still include all of these different patterns, and you'll still see them. They have varied lengths, which will help create some interest and continuity from one side of the page to the other. I'm going to get my photos here just to make sure that you can still see the patterns both above and below the photo and where they will sit on the layout. This looks good. Let me glue all of these and my photos down, and I'll be right back. I've got my journaling strips arranged with part of the story above the title and part of it below the title. I need to get my title situated before I can glue these down to make sure that everything will fit. I usually line up my title on wax paper first before I glue it down. This is an extra step, and yes, it takes extra time, but I need to see how it looks first, especially when I have multiple alphabets in different sizes. I want to make sure that my spacing is right before I commit, And this is a long title that will say Monday Night Football, COVID style. The story behind these photos is that my husband has been a season ticket holder for many years, and how ironic it was that the year the team started winning, this was back in 2020, was the year he only got to go to 2 games because of COVID. This was my first NFL game, and it was quite the strange experience with the stadium at 25% capacity. No lines at concession, no one was sitting around us. We had to wear masks when we walked around, but we were really happy to be there, to be outside, and to finally be doing something away from home. I like how everything looks, so I can commit the title and the journaling and glue it all down. Even though you don't see me do it here, I will add wet glue to everything that doesn't stick well, especially the thickers. I don't always take the time to do it when filming, but it's always a good idea to add wet glue to thickers because the adhesive loses its stickiness over time. I also glue down my journaling strips with wet glue. Over time, the glue runners can do the same thing and lose stickiness. You're going to see me use journaling strips a lot. I have a little Fiskars guillotine cutter that makes it super easy to cut out the strips. I like how it looks, and I feel like the strips in different lengths add interest. And on this page, I think it looks cool to have the journaling split up by the title. And now it's time for the fun part. The embellishing is my favorite part of building a page. I'm placing the circle stars that will serve as cluster bases on this page. I'm just looking to see which star will fit in each of the cluster spots I put on my sketch. I'm going to move them around until I like how it looks. That green star is the biggest one, and it will have the biggest cluster. It ends up on the right side, which works out perfectly since there isn't anything else going on that side of the page. As I was getting everything situated, I realized the top journaling strip was in the way, so I lifted it up to move it over. You'll see it left some glue residue behind. The other embellishments will go right back over that spot, so no need to worry about it. As I set out the embellishments, let me tell you about my circle star cluster bases. I created this cut file myself and cut it out on the Cameo 4 with a white cardstock. I used distress inks and oxide inks to ink in the color. I do this all the time. I don't know if anyone else does, but I don't have a big collection of color cardstock anymore. I like pattern paper way more, and the less cardstock I have, the more room I have in my space for pattern paper. Is there anything you'd sacrifice in your space to have more of something else? By the way, these circle star cut files are available in my shop in several different configurations. There is also a link to the sketch of my completed layout that you can download. Check the description box below for links if you are interested. I'm going to fuss around with my embellishments and move them around until I'm happy. I only have the 2 football icons. One is a die cut and the other is a metal embellishment, and I want them to be on opposite sides. Everything else I have in multiples, and I can add one of each to each cluster. As I go along, you'll see that when I add one thing to one cluster, I try to add the same thing to the other too. I don't think that all clusters have to be matchy-matchy. Even though I basically have the same things in each cluster, the colors are a little different and the size of each cluster is different. The cluster on the lower left page is the smallest, so that one will get the smallest pieces. I don't end up using all the embellishments I put in my kit. I didn't want to keep adding things just to add them. I think there's a good mix going on here, so I'm going to glue all of this down and we can see where there's room to scatter some gems. There's nothing scientific to this. I'll just add red gems in each cluster and one to the center of each yellow circle star die cut. I will try to add other gems here and there and enamel dots too, but I end up taking them off because I don't like how it looks. I'm also adding some white star gems in random places. Before I finish, I'm going to take some wet glue and tack down all the photo corners to make sure nothing is going to come up. And right here at the very end, I realized I didn't have any yellow in the bottom left cluster. I still have a few die cuts that I didn't use. I will add in a small yellow one. There's just enough space once I figure out where I want it to rest. That spot really needed that bit of yellow. I will add another red gem to the center, and that's where I will call this one done. Here are my completed close-ups. This is a 2-page composed design with 7 photos and strips of pattern paper spanning the 2 pages to create continuity. Thank you for joining me today. See you next time.